What's up, everybody? Jacob here at JK Productions. We were talking about the New Orleans Saints earlier this week. In that video, I mentioned we were going to be talking a little bit later about another NFC South team and another quarterback that's a hot topic right now, and that's going to be Anthony Richardson, and the perfect team for him to go to. There's been a lot of discussion about Anthony Richardson, the quarterback out of UF, had an incredible combine, and I understand, don't read too much into the combine, but you can't help but look at what he produced. 6'4", 244 pounds, a 40.5 inch vertical, 10 feet 9 inch on the broad jump. So many numbers that just popped and that were records for quarterbacks. This kid is an overall just well-rounded athlete, and he does have an issue of throwing the ball, which is kind of the most important thing from a quarterback, I understand. But we've seen in recent times that has been able to be fixed with coaching. And I think that's what we can see with Anthony Richardson if he goes to this team that I'm going to present here in a second. With UF, with the Gators, I'm a Gators fan, so I saw a lot of him this year. 2,549 yards, 18 total touchdowns, 654 rushing yards. Did not have a great receiving core that he was throwing to, and I believe that's part of what limited his production in the passing game, as well as he is just very raw as a passer. That is undeniable with Anthony Richardson, that he's going to need to take time to develop. He can't be thrown in a must-win situation right away, and that leads me into the team that I think he's perfect for, and that's going to be the Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers, a team, let's be real, nobody has really taken seriously in a long time. Ever since they went 15-1, they made some playoff runs. Last year, they came really close in a really bad division title race with the Buccaneers. They lost, I think that was that Week 17 game, and essentially, or maybe even officially, clinched their spot out of the playoffs. But I think they did a really good job hiring Frank Wright. There was a little bit of controversy keeping Steve Wilks versus bringing in Frank Wright, and I understand the desire to keep Steve Wilks. The job he did with the Carolina Panthers was phenomenal afterwards, keeping them in the hunt after firing their head coach midseason. He did a great job. Cannot be denied, and he's going to go on and probably get a head coaching job at some point. Wherever he goes, he's going to have some success at a lower role. But he did a great job. But Frank Wright, I don't think, was justly fired from the Indianapolis Colts. He was handed a really rough deck of cards. When you go from Phillip Rivers to Carson Wentz to Matt Ryan, he never had a solid quarterback play. And maybe some of it's his fault. Maybe some of it was his decision to bring in those guys. But you have a trigger-happy owner, and I really like Frank Reich still. I think he can still be a phenomenal coach in this league. And with the Carolina Panthers, with what they did after especially losing Christian McCaffrey, look at the rushing attack. And D'Onta Foreman, Chuba Hubbard here. D'Onta Foreman is a free agent, but I do expect the Panthers to pursue to bring him back, and they absolutely should. Because you would think when you give up your starting running back, getting 6-7 draft picks back in return for him, you would think that would drop the rushing production. And yes, Christian McCaffrey does a lot more than just the rushing attack. He's very versatile. The fact that he's one of, if not the best receiving backs in the league, you would expect the rushing numbers to dip. However, the Carolina Panthers saw their 7 best rushing attack games after they traded Christian McCaffrey. So they have an elite ground game, especially if they can bring back D'Onta Foreman. They have a very underrated offensive line. And that saw these two men eat last year. I had both of them on my fantasy team, one of my fantasy teams, and I saw myself putting D'Onta Foreman in my flex spot every now and then. I saw him jumping over Miles Sanders, who was my backup running back when there was a bye week, when there was an injury. D'Onta Foreman was the one that was the more go-to, the more reliable rusher of the two. But they cracked over 300 yards in the game. They cracked, I think 260 was their second highest total in the season. So they had an incredible rushing attack. And then on the other side, they didn't trade Ryan Burns, who was one of the guys with Christian McCaffrey, who was expected to be going out at the trade deadline. So they kept that defense intact, and they're going to continue to build. If they draft Anthony Richardson, it is definitely going to have to be with their top 10 pick, as well as drafting Anthony Richardson. They have many more draft picks over the next 2 years. I believe they also have a 2025 draft pick. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But they got 6 or 7 picks for Christian McCaffrey, and it's looking like a great deal for them. Yes, Christian McCaffrey got the 49ers into the conference final. However, the Panthers have themselves in a great position to rebuild. The NFC South is wide open right now. The New Orleans Saints definitely got their foot ahead in that matter by going out and getting Derek Carr. But getting Anthony Richardson, I think, is a phenomenal move for the Carolina Panthers. They would get the quarterback where teams like the Falcons, they said they don't want to go out and get Lamar Jackson. Who knows what they do at quarterback? Tampa Bay Buccaneers, no idea. They're shedding their talent. They just cut one of their offensive linemen yesterday. They cut Leonard Fournette earlier on. There's probably going to be guys like maybe a Chris Godwin going to be moved on from. I think Cameron Brate was also released. They're stripping talent from the team, whereas the Panthers are adding talent. They trade away Christian McCaffrey and are going to bring in 6 or 7 new guys, younger guys, to help build up this team. And while the division is certainly wide open, they are not expected to win now. They are not one of those franchises that if there's not immediate success, the fans are going to be knocking at the door of the owner, knocking on the door of the head coach, and asking what's going on. The Carolina Panthers are a low-stress team that the fans have been through a lot. They've certainly been through a lot over the entirety of this organization being around. But I think they can definitely turn the tide around, especially if you look at what their quote-unquote expected wins based off Pro Football Reference or Football Reference, whatever it is, footballreference.com, whatever that is. They were supposed to be 10-7 last year just based off expected wins, and I don't know entirety what that is based off of. I assume it's based off like red zone attempts, time of possession, total yards, a lot of things that should mean you score points and you should score more than the other team. However, 10-7, what is their expected win-loss record last year? They finished with 7 wins, so a flip of that, and they finished 1 game back of the Buccaneers to win the division. The Saints certainly have an advantage right now, getting Derek Carr and getting that veteran, and they likely will win the division next year. However, it is an open division. There's not a lot of talent. There's not any really true good teams that you know are going to come out next year and perform with Tom Brady retiring. Anthony Richardson can step in, and they can bring in a guy like a Jimmy Garoppolo. I kind of roll my eyes at this one, but a Carson Wentz. Maybe bring back Sam Darnold. Bring in somebody, a Jameis Winston. There's a bunch of guys out there that can be brought in as bridge quarterbacks and fight to get this team to the playoffs starting next year. They could have a Seattle Seahawks type season where nobody is looking at them too intensely, nobody's taking them seriously, and then you have this kid on the bench developing, Anthony Richardson, who his ceiling genuinely can be the best quarterback in the league. He has that high of a ceiling. If he can get the throwing stuff taken care of and can right his wrongs that we saw in college where, yeah, he was not the most accurate thrower, he wasn't throwing to great wide receiver talents, but there was throws he should have made that he didn't, again, watching as a UF fan. He's going to be given time to develop, and if he can get that right as well as the athletic ability, he can already be better than Lamar Jackson. He can be better than other mobile quarterbacks we've seen. And then if he truly becomes an elite passer as well as all the other attributes he has, I think he has the potential to be the best quarterback in the NFL. The Carolina Panthers, not in a position where they have to go out and win right now. And Anthony Richardson is certainly a project quarterback, but the type of prospect he is, the elite playmaking ability, the mobility, the arm strength, the arm talent, the accuracy is not there yet. But you have all these things going your way, a team that was expected to win more games than they did last year, a team that finished 1 game back of the division last year, a team that is not under a microscope by their fans. They're not a Green Bay Packers. They're not a New England Patriots. They're not a blue blood in the NFL. They're not a Dallas Cowboys. They're not a team that has to win or it's anarchy. The fans have dealt through a lot. And if they draft Anthony Richardson, I'm sure the fans will expect them to be losing some games, to take a few years to develop him. But if he does develop as well as keep that ground game, I'd even mention DJ Moore. I'd even mention they have one of the, again, actually I did mention, they do have an underrated offensive line. There's a lot of things to like with this Carolina Panthers team. They're a dark horse team. If you want to bet early, a dark horse team to win their division, to make the playoffs, I'm sure the odds are pretty great for you right now if you wanted to bet on that. If they get Anthony Richardson and he can start year 1, which I don't expect to happen. I don't expect him to come out of the gates and be the quarterback he can be. But if he does, that's probably the best team in the division. If they can get Anthony Richardson playing to the level that he can play. A lot to like with Anthony Richardson. A lot to like with the Carolina Panthers going forward. So are you a Carolina Panthers fan? Let me know. Do you want Anthony Richardson? Because there is some worries about him. He could bust. That is very still possible that he never gets it going. He never gets the throwing ability down, never gets that accuracy under wraps. So let me know what you think about Anthony Richardson and the draft as a whole coming forward. Try to make a little bit more draft content, as well as probably talk about Bryce Young later this week. But thank you all very much for watching. JK Productions, Jacob here. Make sure to like, subscribe, and have a great rest of your day. Take care, everybody.